I'm on it. And in today's video, I think I'm going to talk about processes and operations. It doesn't sound very sexy at first, but it's something that's been on my mind a whole lot, and I'm also getting used to this whole video making thing. So I'm just going to talk about whatever random stuff comes to mind, and I'll probably put together like a strategy and a plan and like actually sequence out different topics and things that people find interesting. But right now, I don't think anybody watches this channel, so I'm just going to talk about whatever to get used to standing in front of a camera. So in this case here, the thing that we've been working on a lot as a business is figuring out processes. Because I've been working on how is it that last year we could produce millions of dollars in revenue, yet this year it almost seems challenging, like an uphill battle. Now granted, yes, having the negative PR and 1,000+ angry people and bad reputation and a bunch of other stuff can definitely impact that, but it's more of a practical thing that I'm looking at. The challenge is that, just as a comparison, we have a new website we're making right now, and it is gorgeous, like literally 20 times better than anything we've had previously. At the same time though, it's something where we don't really have a process to be able to provide feedback internally. And then when it comes to putting together a sales offer, so like we're going to be using cold email outreach to be able to connect with people at first, then we're going to have a phone follow-up system, we're going to track it through Pipedrive. I'll probably make an entirely separate video about how we're actually creating our company. Just because I want to really go with the Gary Vee, give the information away. Like I will share it shamelessly for free here on YouTube, and then maybe charge for like a pretty version of it inside of a paywall that has like points and quizzes and tests and stuff like that. At the same time, the information will be available either here on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, wherever it is you want to look, you'll be able to find some information. Specifically in this case here, it's the feedback loop that goes between what's being built and the different parties involved. Because when we take a look at a website, well, that website is what the customers are taking a look at. It's what. And you know what, actually I realized I'm probably talking faster than I want to in these videos. So, okay, let's try this instead. I'm wanting to really focus on getting my voice to be a bit slower because I want to make this very easy to watch for people all over the world. So even if your language isn't necessarily first language is English, if your main language might be Spanish or Russian or French, I want to create a brand that can be watched globally. So, I'm sorry I was going faster in the first part. What I was saying is that it's something where when you look at a website, that website is the perception by which the prospect is going to judge you. They'll look at your website, they'll go to your social, and they're going to make an assessment on if they want to connect with your company to consider making a purchase. So that means there's a lot of parties that need to be involved with that. Typically you might look at it like, okay, of course you need to have a developer, someone that can actually make the integrations happen, whatever animations or to make the site itself work, a technical specialist, a developer puts that together. Then you also have a designer, and the designer is the one that figures out how to make it look pretty and how to be able to put the information on the site in a way that's engaging and attractive to the people who are viewing the site. But then on top of that, you have the sales team. So sales, whenever they're speaking to a prospect, that prospect has judged that salesperson based off of the website. Which means that the salespeople have a very unique awareness of what people are actually looking for. An awareness that is different than that of the developer and that of the designer. And then you also have customer service. So this is people that typically maybe they're already customers that are working with us and they're answering people's questions. So a salesperson might be selling one thing, but customer service sees there's a gap in the knowledge on the website that's causing things to be difficult to understand for customers, and so they keep calling and asking questions. So again, this is just a high-level example. There's a ton of ways to get into it, but basically what we've been looking at and working on overcoming a lot as a company is how do we overcome these process gaps where we need to build a site. But to build a site, we also need an understanding of all these different component parts. If we make a site without a designer, it's not going to be very pretty. If we have a site that's developed well, we don't have any copywriting, then that site isn't going to be useful. And so I say that because it's something where even though it's not a very sexy aspect of business, this type of thinking can not only make a lot of money, it can also save a lot of money and time. Here's what I mean by that. Whenever we first started as a company, it was just myself and 2 other people. I blitzed and made a website within about 2 days, shoved a bunch of copy in there. We had a social presence, a few sporadic posts that were made, and I just hopped on the phone and started grinding out calls. We ran some ads, I had my schedule booked out, I was doing maybe 12 to 15 sales calls a day, and we closed. I think it was like $40,000 in sales our very first month in business. From that point, there was a lot of opportunities we could have taken that would have massively amplified the revenues that we were making. For example, when I was doing sales, I really should have recorded myself selling, saved those recordings, made it accessible for someone else to come on and listen to, so that way then they could better practice as they get into calls, being able to replicate myself. That never happened, therefore our sales were bottlenecked until 4 months, 5 months later, when we brought on a sales gentleman that it was highly, highly competent. The next thing was the actual communication flow between our brand, things like social and website and copywriting, and our vision. So with sales, what products are we offering, what services do we provide? We didn't have any awareness of that. It was kind of like, hey, we've got a customer, and I'm on a sales call perhaps, we've got a prospect that is wanting to hire us for Facebook ads, but they're also wanting a website, let's say. Shit, let's find someone who does websites. And at that point, we didn't have an intimate understanding of what all went into a site. We maybe hadn't built it before, perhaps we were outsourcing through someone that we felt confident with, or we were overseeing the process, but I did not do a deep dive into it yet. And so what this did is it created some messiness. Like, yes, we were able to produce some really cool things, and some sites that I'm still very, very proud of that we had built, especially with the lack of knowledge and experience that we had in those early days. At the same time, as we move forward in this next round, and I'll probably make a separate video that's entirely about what is our strategy, how are we proceeding in business, so that way it can be used as a roadmap for any other entrepreneurs that are out there who are also building something awesome. In this case here, what I'm really wanting to get set up is that we must scale exponentially. Right now, our revenues are, I think we finally got a close in, so less than maybe 10,000-ish per month. And again, all of that goes towards our team, the people that are keeping the company alive. We need to make an extra $1 million, which means right about $5 million in revenue this year, in order to be able to have $1 million that I can set aside, make everything right from last year, while still being able to make the internal investments necessary. So to be able to scale from $20,000 a month to $1 million, it would be $400,000-ish per month if we had a full 12 months, but it's the end of March right now, so it's actually about 9 months left to make $5 million, so that means I need to average $550,000 per month through the rest of this year to achieve that goal. So in order to do that, we need to have a scalable infrastructure. Like, we need to find something that works and be able to 10x it, 100x it very quickly. And process is the answer for that. So to overcome this challenge, I've been studying a book called Scaling Up. And unfortunately, I don't have it here with me right now. But this book breaks down all of the details of what it takes to scale a company, what to watch out for, the processes and systems and accountability procedures you can have in order to have the best shot of scaling your business profitably. In fact, this book is so specific that I know for a fact, if I had read this book at the beginning of last year and just slightly followed, just been aware of the stuff it talks about in there, I would probably be worth several $1 million personally at this point and made tens of millions to my company. Like, we made every mistake in the literal book. The first 10 pages list out all the stuff that we did wrong. I say this because it's something where this channel is meant for friends, family, and the future, and the people I'm imagining will find interest in it are entrepreneurs. And I say this because as an entrepreneur, when you have something that works, whether it's designing a site, maybe it's a sales strategy, maybe it's a design, maybe it's a technique that you use, maybe an advertising, or whatever your thing might be, record yourself, make a process for it, Freelancer.com, Fiverr.com, Upwork.com, the internet exists, guys, and there's no excuse these days to not have a structured process behind you. Because what I will be doing, and what I would massively suggest everybody else do when it comes to making a company, is have somebody watch your recorded videos, and I would personally suggest somebody who's not you. Have somebody watch your recorded videos, build out a process map of exactly what is it that you are doing and whatever the fill-in-the-blank thing is, and then find out how can you create a feedback loop across all parties that may be engaged within that system. For example, back to the website development example. This time, let's say it's for a client. So if we have a client, we have the salesperson who first closed the client, we have the customer service or the account rep that's going to be interacting with that client. We have the web design team, we have the copywriting team, and we have the development team. And that's mostly it. There might be some more ancillary parts, but we'll use those 5 to keep it simple. So in this case here, the salesperson knows what expectation was set of the client. So perhaps to be able to have them communicate or at least be available for that development, they can get an idea of what that process looks like, so when they're selling, they can sell based off of systems as opposed to just off of hopes and dreams. The account rep, that's the person who needs to be able to interact directly with that client. So they definitely need to know, well, where are we at? What problems are we facing? The fact is, business people are typically rather reasonable. They realize that things may come up. There might be bottlenecks, there might be obstacles, issues may arise. The challenge that I know we face as an agency, and many other agencies that I've interacted with face as well, is not communicating very well with clients when things come up. So if you have the account rep that's at least privy to the conversation that's going on in the development of this site, well then when there's a challenge, that rep can communicate with the client and say, hey, so we were going to do an integration with this payment processor you wanted here, but there was actually a recent update. So we need to create some custom coding to make it to where this integration is not only functional, but also meets compliance of the new systems for this platform, whatever it might be. I'm making up an example, but just pointing out that that communication bridge, which sounds so simple in theory, but in practice, when you're behind schedule, you're trying to close out new business, you have a limited function, a limited staff, but you have more and more tasks coming in, and you're trying to innovate and create a brand presence of your own on top of overseeing everything that's going on around you. It can be simple to forget about little things like this. The designer, of course, is there to make the site look pretty. They need to know what the client is looking for, and they also need to be able to share what they're finding in their research. What do the top competitors look like? What do we consider excellence and what's considered mediocre? What is it that we can do now versus where is it that we want to build towards in the future? And then you have the developer inside of there. Then there's a copywriter who's going to be aligning with the designer to be able to put together the site in a beautiful way. And then you have the developer who needs to make sure that it works and does the technical stuff required to actually bring that concept to life. And to make sure that everything plays nicely so that then, as a salesperson is communicating with new prospects, they're able to actually get the right message, the right expectations set from the beginning. And also inspire people with the fact that we have a functional system there to support them. The customer support, the agent's rep, the person that's communicating with the client is able to manage expectations as well as communicate updates. Designer and copywriter are there to not just create the assets needed, but to also be able to share the insights of the research so that the account rep can communicate that to the client and the developer can understand the purpose and intention behind whatever actions they're taking. And for the developer to be able to communicate with everyone else to show, here's what we're working on, here's a timeline that we expect, here are changes that are happening, because the developer in this case here, they're kind of in a world of their own. They almost seem like wizards to most clients of ours. And so if we tell them about all this super techie, jargony stuff, it's not going to make sense. On the other hand, if we can have it to where everyone's aware, yeah, we were running into some challenges, or we found a really neat solution that's actually going to decrease our timeline by this amount. Share the good news. It's something where all of this provides a, 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 not a transaction, but it provides, call it like emotional equity. You know, it is able to build your value in the perception of your clients and with the perception of your team working together as a whole. So this is the direction that we're moving for. I'm happy to be able to share updates as we proceed. I know Scaling Up actually provides coaches. They have some specialists behind what they do, and I have every intention of at some point when we can afford it to hire them to work with us to build these systems. And I will continue to make probably quite a few videos about scaling up because quite frankly, it's one of the most powerful things that I've ever been introduced to when it comes to business. So I'll be certain to share that here on YouTube and on camera, so that way I can document the process and show how it went from knowing fuck all nothing about process optimization and being able to create SOPs and such in a business to becoming a company that scales rapidly in the application of these systems. So thank you so much for watching this video. Feel free to share your comments in the below. I'm looking to learn how I can improve my videos, topics that you guys might find interesting, any insights you might have about what's going on here, and whatever else might come to mind. So until next time, I'm on in Houston. Bye for now.